And we are live on Oz Property Investors. We bring the big names and we have the big fun. We have Anyway, I was going to do the announcement music, but we needed some. No, let's not do that. It is going to be big tonight. We are the 80-20 of building your 150K passive income portfolio. We're talking strategy. We're talking, and then we'll crack on to, how do you find out where you need to buy? And then we'll talk to the big announcement will come in there. Then we're going to figure out the metrics will actually come before that. And then last but not least, you asked for North Melbourne. We're going to be unpacking one of the areas that I think is quite interesting in the north of Melbourne. So stay tuned for that. But Joe, how you tracking, man? What's going on?
Mate, I'm very good. Very, very good. I've been very busy day today. We've got some pretty exciting announcement probably towards the end of this session that I think is going to change the property game up a little bit. Not sure if I'm not sure if you're pumped for it, Jef, but I think people are going to really be interested in what we've got going on. So yeah, man, I think that this session. Go on.
Please, you said you're pregnant. So I don't know how that,
We got a lot of likes. That comment got a lot of likes as well, so maybe it's true. No, but this session is going to be a really interesting one, right? The data in Melbourne, this is why I said 6 months ago, I'm pretty sure I jumped on a live and I'm like, guys, in 6 months' time, 6 to 12 months' time, you're going to start seeing the heat, start seeing the little risings. I don't want to say I predicted the future, but the writing was on the wall. Melbourne is starting to come back a little bit. We've kind of peaked out at that bottom trough there. And, back in the day, we were buying in WA 3 years ago and it absolutely killed it. We're now not as heavy. We're not as focused on that area. Where are we turning our attention? To Victoria. Because
and 2 to 3 years ago, North Queensland, Joe, we did that live session. Remember that one we did in around April or May of 2022? And that was a data deep dive when price in towns were around that 3 to 350. But anyway, this is not about us. This is about I'm not. Yeah. But I wanted to say, though, and we made the poster about jumping over a ravine. And for us, this is what I feel the strategy and the 80-20 of 150K passive income portfolio. So we're going to give you, we're going to reveal some stuff that is pretty, I'm not going to say it's proprietary because I don't know if you can do that, but just call it that. But it is stuff that we've been cooking up for the last sort of couple of years, just thinking about it and tweaking it and making sure it's ready. So Joe, but before we get to that, the RBA cash rate decision, and before we should probably even introduce, I get better at this probably every time, but who is Joe Tucker? For those who don't know him, you're an accomplished professional, 15 years of sales, research, negotiations experience. I think you said you bought over 200 plus properties now, maybe even more, who knows, maybe 300 by the time of this. But you're an active property investor, multi-million-dollar property portfolio you own, plus the multi-million-dollar Oz property you own with me. And you are passion for real estate investing has always been there. You wanted to look at a real estate agency and you decided to co-found Australia's largest property investment communities online. But in your spare time, though, you're also helping others, not spare time. You don't have a lot of spare time. You help others build their property dreams as the founder and owner of Property Principles. So that's you, Joe. Probably too long. I'll work on that.
That is me. Time. Yeah, I feel like you didn't nail it, but you didn't mess it up so bad. So that's good. Yeah, thanks, mate. I really appreciate it. Very kind words. And for everyone that doesn't know Jef, who the hell is Jef? Jef, this is Jef. Jef, only one F. There's no two Fs. You send him two Fs, he will correct you. This guy has his own multi-million-dollar property portfolio. He's also a part of the Oz Property Portfolio building, where we're building a passive income to $150,000. This guy's been doing finance for about 10 years now. Previous to this, he was a mortgage broker, worked in the ATO, which is, I don't know. What were you doing there, Jef? Were you just taking everyone's money, everyone's tax money and spending it poorly, or what were you doing there?
So I was actually in the management sort of side of it. So increasing efficiency in the contact center. So I was working on improve. We did actually, yeah. So we did do some tax technical stuff as well. So all sorts of fun things that was riveting and why I crossed over the dark side. But no, yeah. So I've done all that good stuff.
We always like to introduce the guests. It's a bit weird when we're introducing ourselves. We're not as great at that. Okay, so the RBA announcement, what are your thoughts to that, mate? How does that tickle your pickle? How does that float your boat? Like, what does this actually mean for the real world investors out there?
So for me, what it means is, and we talked about this before the show, you've got for somebody on a 6.5% interest rate at they're getting $82 per month, which doesn't sound like a lot. That's real well. And if you've got $2 million of debt, lucky you, you're at 6.5, you're getting $330 a month. So for me, what that means in reality, though, I think it's not so much the borrowing capacity sort of equation or the story. It's more about the consumer confidence that will start to simmer. And the markets that were sort of starting to look a bit shaky, your Sydney will start to look a little bit shaky. And even the markets will start to taper off, your Perth, your Adelaides. When I say taper off, from 20 to 30% growth, you can't keep seeing that year on year. It's hard to see that. The Brisbanes, you'll start to see a little bit more excitement. Maybe you'll see, I did look at the SQM data. So that's my thoughts. It is going to potentially, what I think it will also do is I don't think that there'll now be the amount of cuts, because they've cut a little bit earlier than maybe some others may expected. I think you'd be lucky to get another 1, maybe 2 this year. So I think that particularly if inflation GDP starts to pick up. So what are your thoughts as a practical on the ground you're seeing day to day, Joe? It's only 1 day, so.
Yeah, well, it's not even just 1 day. Like it's been building up. Like the momentum has been, okay, great. We've had our 13 raises or 14 raises in however much period, and then it's been pause. I'm chatting to a lot of investors, and they're like, hurry up. We need to get rolling. We haven't got time, because as soon as the rates drop, that's going to push people over the edge. There are so many people that are sitting on the fence about property investing purely because of interest rates, and then there's that confidence. That's kind of that crisis of confidence is no longer there. They're like, oh, cool, okay, great. Back before, actually, I was buying an absolute incredible deal. I'm pretty sure the person who owns this property is in the group, so I won't go too much in detail. But it was a rooming house, and it was literally cash flow positive. And then we got the first rate pause announcement. And then she was like, oh, I'm not selling this thing anymore. And those shifts really do impact the market. So fundamentally, from like a cash flow perspective for everyday investors, it's not really going to change anything. There's a saying in the share market where the bull takes the stairs and the bear takes the window. We had a big increase of the opposite, right? Where the interest rate started to rise very quickly. It's going to be a lot slower. It's going to be so much more slow. It's not going to be 13 raises in one go. It's going to be a lot more slower. What does it mean numbers wise, Jef, in terms of borrowing capacity and like financial capacity for people? Like numbers.
I don't know roughly what it translates to is around, so the 0.25, and this is based off live conversations we've had with brokers, it translates to somewhere between a 25 to 50, maybe depending on lender, up to that 100K in borrowing capacity. So it's not necessarily going to get you into that next property, but what it will do, I suppose, for those existing property, particularly in markets that are maybe stagnating or maybe even start to kickstart Melbourne, but borrowing capacity, you're going to need to see like a 1 to 2% drop to start to see to be able to buy another property. So I'm not getting all that excited from that perspective, because the other challenge is as the interest rate decreases, the lenders they increase what's called the household expenditure measures as well. So they say, well, you've got more money in the back pocket, you're going to spend it. They don't assume that you're a diligent property investor, which is kind of annoying, isn't it, Joe? Because you and I, so when we I just put it straight into the offset and away I go. Like I'm ready to. But most people, they'll go and take that holiday and maybe increase inflation. So I think
I think what you should be doing right now, I literally chatted to an investor today and I was like, oh, what's your interest rate looking like? And they're like 8%. And I was like, 8%, that's a lot more than it should be. So I guess this is just a quick note to mention to people. If you've got a $500,000 mortgage and you can drop your interest rate by negotiating with a bank for 1% over a year, because if it's at 8, that's very aggressive, unless you've got like a third, fourth tier lender. This I'm pretty sure it was with like CBA or ANZ or one of the big four. You can get far better rates. So go in and negotiate, because that 1% is $5,000 a year discount. So that's going to be whatever phone call you're going to make today. And I don't have time for it. Spend half an hour to make $5,000. You're making more than a doctor. So do that.
Stop procrastinating. So Okay, that's great. We've covered that off, but the excitement, there was like 500 posts in the group on that. So now what we're going to run through, we're going to start talking to property strategy, because to me, this is like a lot of people glaze over a little bit, but a lot of people don't understand it. And do you want to give us a bit of an overview as to what property strategy looks like, Joe, or shall I go straight to the property stages? What should we crack onto?
Yeah, so what we want to cover off, I guess, in this section is more of like the 80-20, like so everyone knows what the 80-20 is, right? What is the 20% of actions that I can take that are going to drive the 80% of the results. And it works for everything. So what is the 80-20 that we can roll through from a property perspective? I don't think that's big enough. I don't know how to, I don't think I can zoom in. Oh, I can. Sweet. So this is what we call the property process, right? Like this is super straightforward property process of what you need to achieve, what you need to be doing to be getting the results every single time you buy a property. So let's just run through at high level. We have kind of covered this a little bit before, but every time you start the process, we have a level 0, which is like foundation. So this is getting educated about property investing. It's about understanding mortgages. It's about understanding loans. It's about building your A team. It's about getting the foundation set and going back to the brokers to get your finance ready and doing all of that good stuff. Once you're finance ready, you then move to the next stage, which is level 1, which is strategy. So level 1 in strategy is all about working out who you are, where you are, and where do you want to end up, and then reverse engineering to be able to get to that point. Like I have people come to me and they're like, Joe, I was watching your YouTube. I was watching the YouTubes and I want $150,000 of passive income in 3 years. And I'm like, man, so do I. Yeah, that would be really, really good. What are we starting with here? And it's like, great, I've got, $200,000, $300,000. It's not going to get there's just no way unless you do a massive crazy development and start doing these crazy joint ventures. It's just not possible. So it's about trying to build a strategy that is realistic to get you to your goal. And if your goal is unrealistic, it lets you know your goal is unrealistic, but also it's now pushing you and motivating you to push forward. How do you think about property strategy, Jef? Like, I guess this is the first point. How do you frame it?
For me, it's really about understanding it's getting to that ultimate wealth goal. Like that is a little bit down the piece, but that's a bit that gets me most excited, because that's where you get your financial freedom number or your financial freedom. You unpack that, but it's the steps that you take. It's the boring discipline. I hate to say boring discipline because it's like having a budget. You need to kind of unpack and understand, well, what things you need to do to get to that ultimate wealth goal. Everybody looks at the spreadsheet. They want to know which suburb to buy in. They look at that number and they say, oh, that's really exciting. I just need to go and buy 10 properties and I'm financially free. And now I think, okay, great. Now I'm going to go and buy in Roxford Park. I'm going to go and buy in Frankston. Those are the areas, and they jump straight to that thing, but you need the bridge to be able to get there. It's like, well, what is holding you back? So that's the way I like to think about strategy. It's starting with the end of mind, and then taking the necessary steps to get to that stage. That's the way I think about it, Joe.
Yeah. And we had the property flywheel, and we don't really want to repeat stuff we've already covered off. But we have the property flywheel, which helps you determine what is the lowest, what is the asset that you need, the resource that you need to attack the most? What is your limited resource, and how on this next property purchase can you attack that the best? Then what we need to do, so we've now got the property strategy. We know who we are, where we're looking to go, and then this is how we start to build the property portfolio over to get that goal, right? So out of that, we then get given our property plan. We need to create our plan of, great, what does this next property need to be to allow us to get into the next one? And one thing to notice that this is a circle. So once you sign conditional contracts, get all the way to the end till settlement, you restart this whole process again, and you go through your strategy process all over again. Obviously, you've got a lot of the stuff written down, but it's all just reassessing, reevaluating, and then repeating where you are. Because what I see is people, in 2 years' time, like, we just had a baby. 2 years ago, I would say, yeah, we'll push that out. Boom. I can't put it back in. Can't put it back in. You've got it. So that would have changed my strategy and my approach. And then you go through it again. Sorry, Jeff.
100%. Like life circumstances really will dictate, and it's, are you going to upgrade to a new house? And look, I love rent investing, but I realize that people are going to move into new houses. They're going to have private school fees. They're going to have babies. They're going to change jobs. They're going to become self-employed. What I want to say to people is, where are you struggling in your property investing at the moment? Like, drop some comments, like let us know so we can spitball that and really tailor what you're looking for and what you need, because that's what we're all about. We want to make sure we're supporting you as a community and as a group, because this is a community that I wish, I mean, maybe it's a bit self-indulgent community I wish I had grow like many years ago, because it would have helped me to stop that analysis paralysis. But Joe, now that we've introduced that, what I wanted to share with a group and share with everyone watching tonight and everybody watching, let us know your thoughts on this as well. If you, I suppose, because what I'm going to unpack here is what I'm calling, or what we're calling, the portfolio stages, because this forms part of the strategy. This is where ultimately, you want the ultimate wealth goal, but how do you actually move through each of the stages? And this is almost a choose your own adventure. You can go as quick, or I put some time frames on this, but at the same time, I've made them somewhat flexible. So I'll bring it up. So we have the portfolio. Maybe it's not big enough. Do I need to make it bigger?
No, zoom in, yeah.
Zoom
I
in.
can't read any of it. So yeah, you're definitely going to have to zoom in. Zoom in on one side to go start on. Okay.
I don't even know how to, I'm just going to exit that, and I'll just.
So one thing that I wanted to provide, and we already did this. We've actually done the email already. So anyone that goes back in their inbox, I just really want to push on to people that go have a chat with your broker, and go have a chat with your bank. But here is the script that allowed me, like script as in word for word script, how I saved $6,864 on my loan. So I wrote this article years ago. I think it was like 3 years ago, before all the interest rates. And these are the steps that you take. Speak to your broker. If you haven't got a broker, and they're not willing to do it, do this step, blah, 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 get a discount. Joe. Hey, I've been with you guys. Okay. If anyone wants that, throw a
fire emoji in the comments, because that's pretty, we love our fire emoji. I haven't managed to do that, so I'm just going to go. I'm going to talk to it, but I might even post it.
You do pinch the thing on your little trackpad on your Mac.
Yeah,
you have a Mac and you can trackpad.
Maybe you should just share it, Joe, and I can talk to it.
I don't know where it is. It's your folder.
Yeah. It's your folder. That's okay. No, I'm going to talk to it anyway. So the accumulation, the words I can, So essentially, in that stage, it's all about building the foundation, building the base to then, and that's what we're doing in the Oz property 150K passive income portfolio. It is focused on capital growth, and you are going to be negative. You're going to be negative cash flow in a lot of that process. So what I typically then sort of focus on, and you can decide what works in terms of property types, but the foundational builder, buy and hold, set and forget type properties are some of what work for a lot of people. We're doing some cosmetic renos and some potential subdivisions, which you can do that down the track. The time frame I put for that stage is 2 to 5 years. So this is a comprehensive how to look at, well, what does my property investing journey look like? And what you then want to think about is looking at that under market value, which you talk about all the time, great growth locations. And you want to focus on, well, how much do you want growth in the short term, or do you want it in the next 3 to 5 to 7 years? What you're focusing. I think we've gone a heavily growth focused play, and yield to make sure you're able to keep borrowing. Like, yield isn't the key focus, but it is some of the. What do you think about the Oz property portfolio? If you want to critique our portfolio, Joe.
Well, I think that our portfolio is very much accumulation focused, right? Because we need to focus on capital growth. And there's two kinds of capital growth that we can have. Kind of like what I was talking at the outset is why we're like, everyone's like, oh, you guys, you really believe in Victoria? We just spent literally $3 million of our own capital there. Like, we can put this money wherever the hell we want, but we're putting our money where our mouth is on it. But we're very heavily focused on the growth aspect. But what we're doing is we're choosing assets that allow us to build equity on the intake. So we're freezing equity in by getting the subdivision in Townsville, but we're doing the renovation up front. So literally, it's funny. Last week, we had who did we
Kylie
have?
Walker.
Kylie Walker. And she's like, do the thing that you really don't want to do. And I was like, call the stumper. I really don't want to do that. Anyway, I called him up, friendliest guy, super cheap, super affordable. I was he's like, hey, do you want me to remove this other thing in the house? And I'm like, yeah, can you do that? Other guy was going to charge me $2,500 to do it. This guy did it for $350. Best thing I ever did. Should have called him ages ago. So we are renovating. Sorry, I went on a tangent. We're renovating that property. We bought it for $530, and we should renovate it for 80-ish, I think, and then it'll be worth around the 630-ish mark. So this is a very important point for anyone that's investing right now. About 3 years ago, when you first listened to us, we would have been talking about renovation. $1, you put $1 in, you get $3 out. That is a different game in this current market. So what's happened is property prices have been going up so much, and what's happening in the ugly duckling prices, where it was like, cool, you put 20 grand in and you get 60 grand out. Those days for now, because trades are so expensive. So not only are the prices compressing on the difference between a renovated and unrenovated, the cost of doing that renovation. So for the renovation that we have for the, what are we calling it? The reno, I was quoted $100,000 and $90,000 to do it. And that's it. But now I'm unfortunately having to go out there and get all the trades and do all the quotes, and I'll get it for a lot less. We'll probably get it for $60,000. But that's if you guys do the math on it, it's like $1 to $2 rather than $1 equaling $3. So just know, if you're going to go out there and renovate this day and age, stop pumping Victoria, please. Need to collect a few more there.
Yeah,
So,
I agree. Actually, I would be more than
Victoria.
happy people stop selecting Victoria. And even the posts in the group of, maybe they've just decided they don't want to post it, but the negative sentiment of Victoria started to shift. So it just seems, I agree, Joe. I actually focus on two into like put $1 and get $2 back. But 3 into 1 is insane. If you can do that, then absolutely make sure you get it done.
Well, it's if you do the work, you can kind of get greater than $2. But in this current market, to be honest, it's really, really tough. The biggest value add is converting a 2-bed to a 3-bed, or a 3-bed to a 4-bed. That's where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck. But good luck finding that.
The jokes. Love it. Okay, enough of the jokes. So I've actually figured out how to. I figured out how to get the figure out the Zoom situation. So how good is that? Here we go. Look at this. You can see it now. It's amazing. How good is Canva? All right, I should have bought some Canva. Here we go. Bring it up. So now that you've decided, so the thing that to go back to phase one just quickly, the thing that people struggle with here is they max out their borrowing capacity and we should do the financial advice. So this is not financial advice. Go and speak to your broker, accountant. This is just our general experience and knowledge and understanding. So may not apply to you, but focus on building to leaving some borrowing capacity in your personal name. So in that way you can start to in the consolidation phase, you've got some room there to start utilizing the trust using structures, whether it be like self-managed super fund is its own structure, so that'll have its own borrowing capacity, but also consider the trust as well, which if you're working with investment savvy broker, which you've had a couple on, there is the ability to make sure that if it's either paying for itself, if you go to the right lender, you can continue to buy properties. It's not unlimited. You need to buy under the right parameters or go to the right lender. So, but in this consolidation stage, I'm going to say growth is still important. So we've not hit this yet. I'd say we'll probably hit it in a year or two, maybe, Joe, depending on what the conversation between Joe and myself. This is where you start to balance out the cash flow versus growth. And Joe and I may disagree on this as to how building, but I think it's where you start to, like, we've got that frozen equity, as it says, the subdivision up in Townsville. You start to chop off that back if you want to start to reduce that debt, or you build a granny flat. It gives you options, or the unit block, you start to convert that into strata title, many different options, or you do that cosmetic renovation to add the value, depending on the property strategy that you're taking on. If you're doing the slow lane, then maybe you don't do anything. But it's just all determined. So that's why I said 3 to 8 years in this stage. If you're taking the slow lane, it's likely it's going to take you at least 8 years. So there's a lot of words here. I won't go through all that.
No, I mean
So
it makes a good point because it's kind of making you realize that there is a bit of a glass ceiling, and unfortunately, this is what people hit sometimes without realizing that there is a glass ceiling. So they'll max out their borrowing capacities before they start thinking about trust lending and doing all of that kind of stuff, and then that can sometimes hamstring those people to not allow them to continue borrowing. But that's okay because, like, for instance, if you bought in WA in 2020, 2021, 2022, like, and that asset is the thing that's holding you back, you can capitalize. Like, selling a property is not the worst thing in the world to do. Like, recycling that capital, all we're trying to do as property investors is to allocate the capital as best we can. This is the capital that we have access to. This is the utilization of the capital. That's all investors do. You have a chat with Warren Buffett, he's just going to say, all I'm doing is moving money around and shifting the capital. That's all we're doing as property investors. We're buying the best property in the best location at the best price. And then we're trying to go out there and maximize our portfolio. And then, great, well, I can't borrow anymore. Well, if I've got an asset that's in a market that is stagnating or going down, maybe I'm best selling this property, getting the money and moving on to the next one. Maybe, just maybe. Got to crunch the numbers to find that out.
Exactly. That's where that's why strategy is so important. If you just go straight to the ultimate wealth goal, then you may miss the fact that you'll figure there'll be a thing in there that'll stop you and you won't know what's stopping you. And that's where looking at, okay, the different stages and also the different property lanes. If you want to go faster, you need to figure out, well, borrowing capacity is going to be likely to restrain. You're going to have the equity there, but it's how you access that equity. I think is the biggest thing. And the last stage, I'm not going to bring it up because others will talk. We've already nearly half an hour in. We've got announcers. We've got different parts of Victoria to go to, one part actually, but the North Melbourne. So the cash flow stage, which this is where you start to achieve that financial. He's brought it up. Good old Joe.
He's brought it up.
Bring it up. Yeah, okay. So this one generally is going to take people 5 to 10 years, maybe 15, but 5 years is an exceptional. So we're talking a journey of around 10 to 12 years. So this is accumulate. This is the state. Yeah. So over time. So I need to probably make that a bit clearer. But that likely the quickest you can do it is about 10 to 12 years for everyday people. And that's if you're a really active investor. That's if you're doing developments, if you're doing renovation flips. That's if you're taking the autobahn, as Joe likes to say. So what this means though, and what this looks like is it's a focus on cash flow property. Things. It's not saying you're not going to see growth, but it's about getting that commercial property deal. You're getting more unit blocks potentially, just anything that increases the yield. So you've essentially achieved what you want to do. Now it's time to enjoy the fruits of your labor. It's time to, and some people might say, well, look, I want to keep building and build legacy. And that's fine. Maybe that's a stage 4 or phase 4. But for me, what that looks like then is your ultimate wealth goal. And it focuses then on maximizing cash flow and potentially some loan strategy in there, recasting the loan term. So what that means is, let's just say you've had a loan for 10 years. You reset that out to 30 years, and then that means you increases your cash flow. Yes, you're going to pay more interest as well, but it just means that you're bringing forward that financial freedom, your ultimate wealth goal.
Yep, 100%. And I think I think that a point to make about all of these phases is that they blur each other's lines. So like the accumulation phase will blend in with the consolidation phase, which will then blend into the cash flow phase as well. So it'll all kind of merge in together. Not merge in together, but there will be overlap when there's things, because you're trying to address your assets minimum resource. Like, what's the smallest resource you've got there? If you've got some, you read in the comments, Jeff. Anyone? Yeah, it's just the two of us here. Usually we have a guest, so we just rely on having a chat with them. So you guys jump in the comments, throw anything in there. But where are we going next? Are we talking about data? Is that where we're going next, Jeff? What's the
Gurav's joking about Woolies? Like, where does that come in your in the cash flow stage? Or I think anyway,
I wanted to address this one.
Yeah, it's on the. I don't know. Is it an asset or a liability? No, I'd say it's an asset. Love me some Woolies, particularly they've done all right. So Tommy has asked, and I love his question, particularly on YouTube or Facebook. Drop those questions or comments. Somebody said, "Do you have a calculation to determine maximum borrowing capacity, considering salary, salary captions gains or capital gains and yield. So capital gains or capital growth and yield is typically, that's going to be, I suppose, in rental income. But the considering the salary and any other sort of income you're receiving, for the salary side, I know it quite effectively. Typically, it's between 4 to 5 times your income. And so let's just say you're on a household income of about 200K roughly, assuming there's not crazy expenses, assuming just a stock standard, you're looking at, you can borrow potentially up to around that $1 million. But that then factors in, well, what is the rental yield, all that stuff. The best way to go about this is having that investment savvy broker to go to plan the next purchase ahead, and then go, what does my portfolio need, and how do I get to this 150K in the next 10 years? But they have that. There is a calculator there called Quickly, which does do that, but you need to probably be a broker to do that. So Quickly is a software you might be able to use, but I just have that conversation. Aaron Wybrow is a great broker. Aaron Chrissy Dave is a great one as well. Some great ones to chat to, just a name drop. But yeah, those are my thoughts.
Yeah.
So Joe, next up, let's talk. Sorry, go.
Yeah, no, we've had a good lot of brokers on the show, but I think that's a point to make, is there's not really a one that's available publicly, and it's not really a spreadsheet thing that kind of come. Actually, why is there no spreadsheet, Jeff? Like for borrowing capacity and stuff.
It's because it changes so regularly, and the banks are very reluctant to give people the software, because if you imagine if you had a borrowing capacity calculator, you'll start plugging in all sorts of random numbers and figuring out how to hack the borrowing capacity calculator. So that's I imagine why they don't release it to the general public, because otherwise they start to say, well, okay, this person will reverse engineer figuring out what they need to say on their loan application. I'm not suggesting that people manipulate those numbers, but hey, that's my that's
your conspiracy theory, is it?
Yeah. So what I think we should cover off before, and I know we've gone way too long this thing, is the where to buy metrics. What are those core fundamental things, the 80-20 of where to buy? Like, how do we figure out where we're going to buy, Joe?
Well, this is where we create our little property plan, because you've got to create your property plan or your buyer brief, because the buyer brief is what dictates the purchase. So like, just think about it this way. You have, okay, I need to go buy an investment property. The broker says I've got $800,000, but I'm going to buy something that's like 600 to 800 or something like that. I reckon maybe $1 million. Where the hell are you going to look? Like, it's so hard. There's so many suburbs out when you've got all of these things. So this is how people mess up, because they don't have a fundamental brief created. So you need to get a little bit smart about your brief. You need to think about budget. You need to think about your risk levels. You need to think about, when do you need access to the equity? Like, there's a whole heap of stuff that you need to know. What am I doing on this deal? So you need to create a brief. So let's just go, if you have a clear brief on there, like, I am looking to buy a property between $500,000 and $600,000. Based on my financial report card, I can see that I've got the borrowing capacity for that, and also I can afford negative cash flow of up to $18,000 a year. Okay, so that's probably a 3.5% yield that you need on the property. So you can then say, my absolute goal is capital growth on the outset, and I'm happy with a little bit of negative cash flow because the capital growth will outweigh that. That's a far better option. And all of a sudden, you're now not looking in these more, high cash flow areas, because you don't need it. So you've got to create that property brief. But I feel like I've gotten a little sidetracked, Jeff. What was your actual question?
No, it makes sense, Joe, because like a lot of people out there, they just decide that they need to go straight to, where do I buy? Like, where is the next big hotspot? Where's the next Townsville? Where's the next Perth? Or where's the next Brisbane or Rockhampton? All those areas. But you actually brought me back in. So good on you. You actually said, well, what is the brief, and what does it look like?
Yeah.
Follow the steps in the process. Otherwise, that's where a lot of people get unstuck. They don't understand what they need in that portfolio next. And therefore, they just go and buy the next hotspot, not realizing that if they do that, if they go and buy that property in Victoria, which, yes, in the next 1 to 3 to 5 years could be the top of the pops kind of performing market, they then say, okay, they're hamstringing themselves because they're almost tapped out their borrowing capacity. So, and they're getting a 4 to 4.5% yield that's not supporting to them buy the next asset. So you and I in this, we can sort of buy those 4 to 5% yielding assets. But
Well,
that's
yeah, it's because we didn't need the hotspot location. So, like, you look at our Townsville deal, and this is a prime example. Townsville is very much a hotspot right now. Still, the fundamentals are very strong there, and these floods have actually made it very interesting because now the areas that aren't in the flood zone are now far more popular. So vacancy rates are now dropping again because now people are like, the locals are like, I am sick of sweeping up dirty water and messing about with this. I'm going to go live in the non-flood zones areas. So yeah, that's it. You've got to create your property plan. You've got to create your property brief. And then that's where you then go ahead and assess the suburbs that are going to give you those results. So if you just say, great, I've got $500,000 to $600,000, I'm looking for an area that has the strongest amount of capital growth, and I don't necessarily need to do renovations or subdivisions or any of this stuff. I'm just looking for the best capital growth. You will then start to shorten that list, and all of a sudden you've gone from 15,000 suburbs in Australia to, I don't know. And before the data, you've got hundreds. Still a lot to do, but then you filter and keep layering things over the top of it to then rule out a whole bunch. So it's not actually about trying to find a needle in the haystack. It's about getting rid of the hay that's not relevant, so that when you get to the bottom of the pile, you're like, cool, well, there's 3 to 4 options here. I'm now going to research these markets, become an area expert, do my remote boots on the ground. I'm going to build these relationships with the agents. And to be honest, it doesn't take much. Like getting off market deals is building relationships with agents. It doesn't take as much as you would initially think.
Just being consistent and actually focus. Like if you're like, oh, this agent's not calling me back, or if you give up at that first obstacle, as you and I both say, that then eliminates all those other people that have given up already. Just keep dial the next agent, like figure out the person who does pick up the phone call, because it's like if that person's picking up the phone call, it means that they probably might have a listing that they might not be the most diligent agent. So that might be the person you actually want to deal with, the person who hasn't got 100 listings and is willing to, just needs to make a sale to put food on the table. And I'm not suggesting that real estate agents are unethical. Maybe they are sometimes. But no, it's about, well, there's incentives align. They need to sort of create a paycheck. But Joe, so let's take it back to the metrics we should be considering, like some of the core metrics. Not going to give all of them because that'd be like an 8-hour session. We've done that. So we've gone through that stage.
Really, we're going from suburb select. So we need to choose suburb selection. So we built our brief. So really, it comes down to the balance of supply and demand. Like, okay, Jeff, if you were planted on an island somewhere, what are the metrics? Like, what are the demand metrics that you would be like? Because that's again, guys, sorry, just to simplify this again, we're looking at the balance of supply and we're looking at the balance of demand in property, because the more demand that there is in an area and the lack of supply is going to create prices to push up. It's just like with just like with crypto and Bitcoins and
NFTs.
NFT, well, not even NFTs, just like groceries, like COVID and toilet paper, right? That's a supply and demand issue. Gloves and COVID. Anyway, so what would your data metrics be for the demand side of things? That you're stuck on an island, you only have a few. What would it be?
I'm going to focus, the core one that I look at generally is days on market, because to me that tells me that's one of the core ones you need to look at. And what that is how quickly properties are selling. I know maybe most people don't need that explained to them, but that'll indicate the hotter the market, the quicker properties are selling, which indicates there's more demand starting to see, or less supply also coming into the market. So what that means is, if there's more demand and days on market decreases, all other things being equal, and maybe some other things going down as well, you'll start to see capital growth pick up in that location. If properties are lingering, if they're on the market too long, you'll start to see that days on market trickle up, and you'll start seeing maybe prices will just stagnate, or they'll sort of go backwards even slightly. So those some of the kind of very fundamental things to look at. And it's what's important to consider as well is, over time, what is the trend doing? Because it's not just, looking at a number, 50 days on market is okay, that doesn't sound too great. But if it was 60 days 3 months ago, crap, that's starting to slope. The trend is starting to go down quite considerably. Whereas if you're at 20 days and 4 months ago it was at 13 or 14 days, maybe that's a bit of a red flag. Maybe this market's slowing down. You need to look at looking at any metric in isolation is a bit flawed, but you need to sort of pay a bit more attention to other metrics as well to make sure you're not buying into a starting to decline market, depending on what you're after.
Yeah, I totally agree. And also, like we just did this today. Like we're researching a suburb. I'm not sure if you mentioned it. The people voted, so we're not necessarily, hey, go buy here and do all of that kind of stuff. People said, hey, do this suburb, and we'll do that. One of the metrics, you were like, oh wow, we're at 50 days on market. And I'm like, yeah. But consider we just had January, right? And January and December time over Christmas. And then you look at the days on market previously, and it was at 20 or 25 or something. So you do have to not just rely on one number. It is looking at the trend. I know Jeff said that, so sorry, I'm repeating you. The metrics that I would look, all I care, okay, so we're looking at demand, and literally you've got one number there, days on market, which is going to be an indicator. How quick is the stuff flying off the shelves? Because that's important. The other thing is how many things are on the shelf. So that is where stock on market comes in. So the way it works with stock on market, it's a ratio between the total number of dwellings in the area, so how many of them are there, and then how much of them are actually selling. So if that number is lower, it means that there's fewer properties available for people to buy. So that tells you that the lower that gets, there's less properties available. And then the demand is pushing hard against that as well, because that's taking shorter amount of time to go. They're disappearing. So that is one of the core metrics, the supply of properties that is on the market. Again, it is a trending metric, and you need to look at that. And then what else? The other thing is,
just wanted to bring up, and Elijah, we're probably not going to mention, I suppose, the price changes. It can be an indicator for sure. Anything 3 to 7% growth in 12 months is a warm spot. If days on market is decreasing. So he's highlighting there what we're saying. It's about, you start to build the bit of the narrative as to what that particular market is doing. So thanks for pointing it out. The other thing, Joe, we've shifted over supply metrics now.
No, yeah. So supply metrics is the other supply metric is the future supply coming onto the market. So that is a very key, valuable point to look at. So we need to look at building approvals. I like to look at building approvals for 12 months, and then I like to look at the building approvals for 18 months, because it takes around about 12 to 18 months to build a property. So sometimes it's shorter, sometimes it's longer. In the current market that we're in, that is a very good indication that you should be looking at. Again, the way it works is a percentage. So if you have a look at a suburb in South Australia called Morphett Vale, absolutely massive suburb. So if there is, 10 properties coming on the market, that's a drop in the ocean compared to a suburb that's a lot smaller. There are some super small suburbs in South Australia that have like 500 dwellings. If there was 10 that were developing there, that would be a major oversupply. So that is something to look at. So you've got to look at that as a percentage. I like to look at 12 and 18 months, so you know what's coming on and what has the potential for come on. But then also even zooming back a little bit further, because what's going to come on in the next 12 months, it's going to really affect. A good way to do that as well, just from a visual aspect, is looking at new houses. Like on real estate, never click new houses when you're looking to buy your investment property, but look at new houses coming to the market, so you can see, oh, look, the agents are advertising this massive land subdivision. Am I near it? Is that going to affect my property? What is that going to look like?
We haven't had a good soapbox rant from Joe recently about house and land packages, but maybe we'll have to save that for another time. We'll get him sidetracked. But no, Joe, and interestingly, you and I, this area we're looking at around, and it is in Hume. So Hume's a big area. I'm not giving too much away, but that is the general council area that we're going to be focusing on. There's about 20 or 30 suburbs, so stay tuned for which one. But the interesting thing that I was concerned about was the potential land supply coming on, and how do we think about, where do we come to on that, Joe? Because people spoke about that in Baldivis as well. The potential land supply. So you look at it and you say, well, right now it's not really a concern, but how much do you even think? I mean, I'm asking a hard question here potentially, but what do you think about that potential land supply when it's not currently being developed? Are you concerned, or I'm a little bit concerned?
Yeah.
But
well, you've got to dive into it a little bit deeper and see what the council, the council is trying to do, what they're trying to achieve. And if the infrastructure is actually there, that's another thing that we didn't even talk about. We're talking about a few data metrics, like some things are hard to quantify. So there's qualitative data metrics and there's quantitative data metrics. So like some of the things is if there's a massive infrastructure project and the council is forced to create more dwellings, but that new infrastructure is going to take 12 months, then they're not going to release the houses, but there's that likelihood that it would, then it's just a little bit of an added risk that that supply is coming to the market. So it's not 100% no, don't buy in areas that have land, because the other thing is there's the suburbs. Actually, I'm talking about that just today to you, Jeff, about Geelong. Let me just bring up my map. I'll just bring up the map if I can load it, because some suburbs, and this is where the data gets really shady if you don't look at it as a whole. So there's a suburb in Geelong called Hamlin. Can you share my screen? Yeah, you go. It's called Hamlin Heights, or you can see here. So Hamlin Heights is all of this area here. So if they decide to build a big supply of land, that's not necessarily going to affect this version of Hamlin Heights. Not saying that they can build there, but it's like an illustrative point. So this isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world for this area, because you building up on this side of the highway, this is not where all the action is. Geelong is very hemmed in by this M1 highway. So it's just a consideration. It's not just looking at data for the sake of data. You've got to take a step back and look at it realistically as well, because some suburbs factor in that. The other way it works is there's other suburbs that literally cut off and ignore all of the land supply that's coming into it.
Oh, gee, that's interesting. Yeah. Somebody said, to assess building approval, this is a tough question. I don't know if I've got the absolute data metrics behind this, but do you consider the suburbs around it? If yes, what radius? It's something I look at. I'm not laying awake in bed at night thinking about it. I typically would say if you I don't lay in, yeah. So I would say if you're 2 kilometers is pretty close. So 2Ks, yeah. I would say, anything sort of within that sort of 5K, you want to start considering it. It's a risk. You just then need to note it. If everything else, like, it's about probability, like putting the odds in your favor. If everything else checks out, if your days on market with strategy, if you're buying a fantastic property, maybe it's something you're okay to consider. But if the vacancy rate's high, if the days on market's high, if the vendor discounting is quite high, I'm like, what is this? What is this property? What is the suburb got going for it? Is the question. So it's considering. So it's one data point or one little point I'd consider. Is that the way you think about it as well, Joe?
Yes, but you do need to look around the surrounding suburbs, but you've also got to factor in everything else considering it, because if all the infrastructure is in your suburb, then there's a heap of land supply, but there's nothing there. There's no infrastructure. There's no hospitals. There's no schools. There's nothing. It's kind of like, cool, yeah, but that's not going to, just because there's land supply over here doesn't mean that it's going to detract from the value here. There's just going to be that type of stock here, but everyone wants to live in this suburb. So you can't just look at, actually, this is one of the things that really annoys me about like people in the industry. They look at the region entirely, like Logan, right? They're like, oh, Logan has a lot of land supply. It does. Absolutely. Logan has some of the highest land supply possible. Yarrabilla, massive developments that are coming on. Like, don't buy Logan. Look at all that land supply. What about Tanamera? You literally can't build another house in Tanamera. That place has grown rapidly in the past because, you look at the data around, but don't buy in the areas that have the opportunity to spread out. Anyway, I feel like I'm going off on one. So those are some of the data points, right? Basic supply, basic demand. What are your thoughts of the distance to the CBD? What are your thoughts of the distance to the CBD, Jeff?
I think you already wrote an article on it, Joe. Do we have to? No. So interestingly, I think it was 3 or 4 months ago in either October or September of 2024, the Oz Property newsletter. So that was where I'd say, debunked largely the myth on being close to the CBD. I think I think over the last 10 years, it's not necessarily been the bee's knees. And again, you can look at percentage. I think we're looking at percentage growth there, is it? Or is that actual?
Yes.
Yeah, that's
So
percentage growth.
This is percentage. This is just drop that comment so you can see. So this is over 10 years. And what you'll see is capital growth has been the best in the 40 to 50 and 50 to 60 mark. So in fact, being closer to the CBD has been a negative impact to capital growth. And that's for New South Wales. And we keep going. You keep going. You keep scrolling. You keep scrolling. Similar story here with what? South Australia. South Australia, though, is a lot smaller of a city. So 40 kilometers out of the city is massive. CBD for growth rates for Victoria. Again, these middle ring suburbs. Like, I think everyone is, the real opportunity is where everyday Aussies are trying to live and where everyday Aussies can afford to push the prices up. So you've got to look at the demographic of the area as well. But buying close to the CBD does not guarantee capital growth. The reason why these areas have gone up in price is like the reason why these places are worth more is because they always started to be more and then they kept growing and scaling out, but they can't continue at these silly growth rates. So yeah, here are the numbers to tell you, for the past 10 years, you've actually been better served buying in these middle ring suburbs rather than the main ones, which is interesting. It's just data. I don't make this up.
No. So we are going to unpack the area and the suburb, and the announcement is coming as well. But what I wanted to say is, was there anything else on the metrics you wanted to consider, Joe? Otherwise, I've got some quick tips and tactics to start to find the deal.
Quick tip me, mate. Give me the tip.
Melton is looking good then. Oh, somebody said jokes. So the tips that I want to sort of focus on, this is if for those people struggling to find, because this is something people asked about a couple of weeks ago, how do you find those property deals? It's about focusing, I alluded to this earlier, it's about those key agents you need to have those conversations with. And it's either those ones, and Joe will have lots of insights on this as well, it's either ones that are selling a lot of property or the ones that may be out of area and are just sort of starting to pick up one or two. The reason why you want to focus on one or two of those, you've got deal flow coming from one. They may be the toughest agents to buy from. So a couple of examples over in WA. We know a couple of agents over there who absolutely smashing through the deals. And you probably, I don't think we had one on a live a year or so ago. But otherwise, there can be some fantastic opportunities from the agents who don't necessarily know their products in that area. And if you can sort of come in with an appealing offer for the vendor and understand that, that's a way you can start to build that deal flow with these different types of agents. It's consistency as well. It's following up, like set the tone, like do it on a weekly basis, even if it's a phone call or a text, making sure you're following up and saying, what have you got coming up? And eventually they'll start to say, this person's not going away. They're actually serious, and show that you're committed that you have that finance pre-approval, as long as you have it, or as long as you have some confidence. If you don't have that, then don't lie about it. Because if you get found out, it will absolutely burn your reputation. So you need to do that. The other thing is simplifying as well. Like it doesn't have to be difficult. Like if you start putting in 4 or 5 different offers with different terms on the same property, the agents are going to say, well, I don't understand.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do with this? Like, this is just too hard. Like, figure out what the vendor wants and needs. And if that's within your parameters, then start to make that. And that's how you start to get these deals come to you, because you start to be known as a person who just makes it happen.
Yeah. So and I think actually understanding the process of purchasing a property in that state as well is very important. Definitely. Like if you go into South Australia, for instance, you say to an agent, hey, a 14-day finance, I don't need a pest and building clause. Just send me the Form 1 when it's ready and we'll make this happen. Oh my gosh, Joe, you're not buying that house without a pest and building? No, I know. In South Australia, you get a 2-day cooling off period, which allows you to pull out of the deal for whatever reason. So if I can then do my pest and building during those 2 days, because I've spoken to a pest and builder guy and he knows, I know that he'll go out there and he does them. And then all of a sudden you've got the cleanest offer because you've got 14-day finance. That's it. And then you'll do the pest and building during the cooling off and you'll pull out or proceed if you're happy with it. But if you speak to an agent and say, great, yep, Form 1's ready to go. Have you got the Form 1? No, I don't have it yet. Great. Okay, cool. Well, when's it going to be ready? Well, yeah, we'll do it now. Great. Well, we can exchange a contract. We don't need the Form 1. Let's just exchange the contract. And then he's going to be like, oh, yeah, but it kind of messes with my calling off. That's fine. I know that when the Form 1 is served, that's when the calling off starts. So, yeah, know the market a little bit more. And then you can have those more, be professional, I guess. Maybe not professional.
Show that you mean business, I think, yeah. So, yeah. I think that's, and then there's so much that goes into that pre-conversation, into the negotiation sort of masterclass, which you sort of talk about day in, day out. Which if we had time to do that, saw a twinkle in Joe's eye. But the other thing that so we are going to talk about that suburb next. Joe, do you want to should we throw to our sponsor? What should we do? Well, we got
let's run this bloody ad. Okay. The amazing thing with commercial property investing is that in most cases it's cash flow positive from day one. Should be playing. The amazing thing with commercial property investing is that in most cases it's cash flow positive from day one, which means that you can drive those profits towards paying down the debt. There are instances with commercial property investing where you can actually have the property pay itself off over 10 years, which is absolutely crazy. With commercial property, you get massive net yield, so you can expect anywhere between 6 to 10%. And as we've seen in the current boom, these properties not only provide large cash flow, they do certainly grow wildly in value too. Now, with big rewards comes some risk, and this is why you should de-risk your investment as much as possible. And the way you do that is with expert due diligence. And this is why we highly recommend people hire professionals to help you along in your investing journey. Steve Polisi of Polisi Property is one such expert. Being a chartered mechanical and structural engineer in a past life, Steve draws on his analytical and mathematical skills to do that expert due diligence for you. With 6 years experience in the space, Steve has over 1,200 property transactions under his belt. He's the guy you want in your corner, crunching the numbers and finding the best properties in the best locations, along with ensuring that you avoid the mistakes. Steve has actually even written the book on commercial property investing in Australia, and not only is it a bestseller, I believe it to be the most comprehensive in commercial property investing on the market today. He's been generous enough to give us a massive discount for our audience of 50%. So use the code OZPROP, click the link below, get a copy today, and start learning and getting on your commercial property investing journey.
Okay, we are back. So we are going to dive into an area which people requested north of Melbourne, a suburb up that way. So that is we're going to give you what that is. So Joe and I were sort of locking horns somewhat on Meadow Heights versus other ones. So which one are we diving into, Joe?
The one we prepared, Roxford Park.
Roxford Park, as well. Exactly. So what do you want to tell us about what's going on in Roxford Park in the north of Melbourne? What do
you tell me, mate? You tell me. I'm the data dude. You're the high level macro fundamental dude today.
Well, actually, that's a good point.
Why do we
what
like
are the things? What are the things we should we actually introduce the things you should be looking at? We should be looking. I mean, I can talk to it if you want, but it's about that. About the employment, about the desirability. It's all these factors, the fundamentals, which is what I'm going to be diving into now. And that gives us so essentially Roxford Park, which is in the huge council area of Hume. So it's absolutely huge. So it is one of the biggest, I think, maybe not the biggest in Victoria. And there's 40 billion, right? Yeah, LGA. 40 billion being spent in the next 5 to 10 years in this area. So the thing I wanted to say about money being spent is you need to verify whether it's at the approved stage or a proposed stage. Just because they're throwing money out there, maybe the government changes, particularly anything beyond, because the next Victorian election is in 2026. So if there's a new Victorian government come in, if there's a Liberal government come in, they may say, look, okay, we're actually rationalising that spend that was going to happen in 2028. Now that's not going to go ahead. So just be mindful and just be careful of that. So, but some of the things though that are going to add to the desirability and I suppose the appeal of the area is things like and this is across the whole of Melbourne, but the Melbourne airport railing as well, which is planned. So maybe it doesn't go in accordingly, but that's 10 billion. And then there's the Metro Tunnel and Craigieburn line improvements of up to 12 billion. There's the Northeast Link and M80 ring roads, 18 billion. All this money on roads just to make, because right now, I don't know anybody's driven Melbourne. I haven't driven Melbourne in a couple of years, but peak hour traffic, and those ring roads, you could be stuck there for hours. So you really need to consider those ability to access, even though you're only sort of 15 to 20 to 25, 30 Ks out from the city. So the other things that I really quite like.
It is only 28 kilometers from the city, Roxford Park. It is 37 minutes drive via the M2 to get into the heart of Melbourne. So it's really very close. And what are keep going, Jeff.
On a bad day, I imagine that would be well in excess of an hour, though. In peak hour, that's definitely not 37.
Well beyond, yeah.
But what the other things that people love is there's things such as your schools and infrastructures. People got to go to school, so they're spending a lot of money on the Roxford College. Now, I've never been to the school, and I haven't called the property managers yet to understand to dive in. That's another thing that you would need to do and verify and really get those boots on the ground insights. So that's something you're going to need to do the research yourself. But the hospital at Epping they're spending 855 million on, or have spent that on emergency facilities, increasing the hospital beds. So they're considering, because population there is going to almost increase by 80% over the next to 2041. Sorry. So there's heaps of things happening, and there's shopping as well. Broadmeadows, which does have a bit of a reputation, but they're spending 500 million on that. Craigieburn, 250 million. And Parks and Recs, Roxford Park Sporting Community, $50 million. So there's all these things that go into the area. So I'm not saying you should buy the purely based off this, but they are planning for this to be a growth corridor. So that doesn't mean capital growth. It just means that they're planning for a lot of people to move into this area over the next 5, 10 to 15 years that they projected that. So that's my kind of synopsis on the fundamentals of the area and in general, but Roxford Park as well.
Yeah, and you've got to look at the fundamentals from a short term and also from the long term. And this is where those type of things come in from the long term side of things. Like, okay, cool. Well, if you look at an area and nothing is coming in the next 5 years, and there's nothing to drive the demand, it's probably not going to be as an attractive and appealing thing. Because this is how we look beyond the data to be able to see what's actually coming in and coming on, because the data only goes so far. You can only really forward project so much with a spreadsheet. And then this is where you have to then get your more qualitative and quantitative data points to then see what the future holds. But if we go through the actual data with Roxborough Park, the median house price the typical house price is $713,000. You can pick up deals for $600,000 to $700,000 for like basic 3-in-1s. So you can do that. Rent around $535. So $535 times by 52 divided by 713,000 makes it a 3.9% yield. So that's almost a 4% yield. So that's not that bad. It's definitely not
Victoria.
A positive cash flow environment.
But Joe, tell us about Victoria, the good news about that though. It's gone up, I believe, close to at least around 15% in the last 12 months. So rents across a lot of, in particular Hume, have been increasing across a lot of Melbourne, but in particular the more affordable rental areas around, because people are saying, well, like there's properties that have come on the market because investors have sold, yes. But at the same time, that's actually meant that there's not a great yield. Not a great yield, but it has improved. So if you're looking for cash flow, Victoria, if you're able to stomach that cash flow initially with a focus on capital growth. So come back to the strategy. But go on, Joe. Sorry, I stole your thunder.
No, exactly. Rents are rising. Vacancy rates are dropping. Vacancy rates are at 2%. So it means that people actually want to rent there. So when you this is a vacancy rates are how many people are actually renting the property, right? So if that's lower, less than 3% is kind of a stable market. So anything below that means that it's more hotter for a rental standpoint. So getting a tenant, now it is at 2%. So it's not like, holy crap, massive crazy rental crisis. Do expect 2 weeks vacancies when you're doing your property. The other thing is to mention is you should probably, you might need to spice up your property a little bit more. You're not going like Townsville rental right now is a little bit crazy. You can do anything. You can rent out anything right now because people are desperate. This market, you have to paint and put the air conditioning in and do those little bits and pieces that you probably wouldn't need to do in another market. But also it's going to get a better tenant anyway. So do those things, spend the money on the property. One, you can get a depreciation tax deduction. And two, you'll get a better tenant. You'll get a tenant that actually looks after the place because they're comfortable, warm, nice, and looked after, and it's not some gross ass property.
Yeah. I agree.
Other data metrics to talk to.
Okay.
Supply, stock on market, incredibly low. We've got 0.14% from a stock on market standpoint. So there is not much available stock coming to the market. In terms of building approval, so we look at Roxford Park, and you can see that it's. Let me bring up my screen so you guys can get a bit of a feel for it. So this is actually where it is. So you can see here, we've got from the city. You got it. Yeah, close.
You were up, close to some of that land on the left-hand side there. You roke.
So yeah, this is where it gets a little bit interesting here with Craigieburn. Craigiebur's got a whole heap of land supply, so that's going to be completely different data metric points, like completely different numbers. Whereas Roxborough Park is all built in. So going back to that person's question, like, well, look at surrounding suburbs and things and how that's going to affect it. But this is a very well-established area. So there is 6 building approvals coming to the market for this entire area. So the supply is very, very fixed. So that's very good because the supply is what you can see that's coming too, which is very important to know, right? One thing to note though with this market, like that is a feature, maybe a bug, it might be a feature or a bug, is that the land sizes are quite small. So don't go out there expecting to get 600 square meter blocks, and they love filling their entire, no matter what their land size is, they fill the house. Look at this, every single one is like, cool, I don't want any land, I just want a house. Look at this one, holy crap, built it literally to the boundary. But yeah, it's another thing to mention. So if you're going in there, no, my brief is minimum 600 square meters, I have to have that, then no, I'm sorry, you're not necessarily going to get it. Subdivision, very difficult to do in this market. So if you're looking at a value add deal and you're thinking, Joe, love this area, it fits my brief perfectly, and I want subdivision, yeah, probably sorry, not going to be the area that you need to be looking at for that value add strategy. So you create strategies, but you also need to tailor yourself to the markets that fit those strategies.
Yeah, exactly. Somebody's asking, oh, what have we got here, Joe?
Oh shit, I didn't realize I was just sharing my machine.
Jeez. So somebody has asked us, oh wait, no, we're not. Okay, so somebody has asked us, what data source are you using for this, guys, or is it a combo of sites? I'm all about learning to source the data, because that's a great question you've asked, Daniel. What do we focus on with our data? Because we talk about it a lot. What do we look at?
Yeah, so I think you've got to go out there and source data and compare it against other things as well. Like I do look in a lot of places. So like when it comes to building approvals, we've got the government website, so you can find out how many building approvals there are. You don't necessarily need to pay for subscription platforms to be able to get to be able to do all of this. However, if you do, you get a lot. It just makes your life a lot easier, right? Our goal here is to assess property deals at scale. So you can then go out there and buy platforms. So the platform that we highly recommend people to use is the hashtag platform. That's what we use a lot. But also we use a lot of other platforms like internally to not just to confirm a lot of the things as well. Yeah. So you got to does that make sense? I feel like I'm talking around it.
It sounds like you were. Yeah, sorry, I put you on a hard question. The thing I like to jump into a tool like microburbs, because to me that tells me the pockets of an area. And yes, you have to know that the census data that is now 2 to 3 years old. So, and combining that, I was actually writing something about today. So combining the data with the boots on the ground analysis and considering and comparing both. And that way you're actually getting a holistic view as to the boots on the ground truth and the data truth as well, the reality of what's going on. So those are the key things. And we'll actually tackle some of that, the microburbs. There's another. I liked Meadow more, but I know that Roxford actually has a lot of owner occupied appeal from what I haven't verified a lot of that with my boots on the ground. That's the answer to your question. Daniel said, "Excellent, thanks guys." I wanted to address this question. Hard to hold for ordinary mum and dad 4% yield. Did Joe include the tax in his calculations? I keep telling about this tax, but I mean, the tax is there. Is it hard to hold at 4% yield? 100%. I mean, are there markets in Victoria which I would still consider buying? And that's where you can start to stack the strategies. If you believe that Victoria is a market based on your property sort of strategy, if you're happy to sort of see growth in the 1 to 3 to 5 years, sort of that thing that will sort of see more growth, then there is a way. We've done it on a couple of the deals. We've renovated from a 3 into 4 better, which increases the yield to close to that 5%. And you're not finding many markets that I would buy at that 5% marks. I mean, yeah, you can go quite regional. Like even Townsville these days, Joe, you see it day in, day out. You're struggling to get that 5.5% even in Townsville, which is the gross yield. So you got to tack insurance on there as well. So it's closer to a 5% once you factor in insurance as well. But I just wanted to point that out because.
Yeah, it's a great point. I would really like to. It would just take forever to make the calculator, but I'd really love to be able to assess. Like everyone, just stop talking about gross yields, right? Just shut up about gross yields, because what matters is the net yield on your property. Just like they assess commercial, you've got to assess your residential exactly the same. We're coming out with a new deal crunch calculator that allows you to crunch the net yield, and that tells you what actually is in your pocket at the end of the day on this deal. Because if you are going hard thinking, oh, cool, I'm going to buy 5% in Townsville and I'm going to find a 5% in in Victoria, your Victoria property, even after the expenses of paying the land tax of $1,100, will actually be more cash flow positive than your Queensland one. So from a net yield perspective, it might be 3%, but your Victoria one might be 3.2%. So I think that's a little high level for number nerds and data people. So I might be going a little bit too off topic there. But we did promise we have a huge announcement, Jeff. Are we going to talk? Are we going to talk to that?
I don't know. Do you want? I mean, I'm open to talking about it if you are, Joe. What is our announcement? What have we been teasing? What have we been building for this last spoiler alert? Yeah, I love that Joe's scared. I was just about to jump on microburbs, but let's talk about what is the announcement, Joe? I didn't bring my shirt.
This is the thing. So we actually created this group probably, 5 years ago. I went through my phone and I sent Jeff a video of this is what we need to do. This is how we need to think about property investing. And this is the strategy. It was kind of like a business plan of how I think about investing in property and how Jeff thinks about investing in property. And we came up with this thing of like, this is what we believe to be true about how you go out there and buy an investment grade property in an investment grade location. But what happened was life got in the way. Things got in the way. I created a buyer's agency business, and I've been implementing the tools that we created in that session. And I realized that we've fucking killed it. Like, we have absolutely killed it with this stuff. And I realized that not everyone is going to be a client of not everyone wants to use a buyer's agent, right? I feel like I'm making this all about me. But we decided to create something. What? Go, Jeff.
Do you want me to say a few words, Joe? Because for me,
Yeah,
this
say a few
community is a huge part of my last 5 years, and I've got to know many, including yourself, of course. But we met at the Steve Ignite conference in 2017, and we connected over that. We connected over a few beers, and then we said, well, what do we need to do our own property investing? What are we missing? Where are we going to? So for me, I'm super passionate about, and I've always get people ask me, what can I do to help, and how can you help me? And I love to help as many people as I can. But unfortunately, it's gotten to a stage where we're 80,000 people. We just can't. I can't respond to 10 to 15 to 20 DMs per week, and we don't encourage DMs, of course. But we can't actively. I can't give you a decent response with the limited time that we all sort of have going on, because I want to care so much. So for me, this is all about the community and building that, and it's always going to be about that, regardless of what we have coming up. But what do we have, Joe? I just wanted to share that passion, mate, because that's what it's about. Yeah,
mate. We have something that is like steroids for your property portfolio. What we've been working on in the background is we created a course. It's a program. It's called the Level Up Property Course. And essentially what we are doing is teaching you absolutely everything that we've just spoken about. And it's a step-by-step process to take you from an absolute nobody in knowing nothing about property investing, or if you've already got 5 or 6 properties under your belt, we take you through the step-by-step process. We had a look at all of the property courses that exist out there in the market, and we weren't happy with the results that we were seeing, and what actually existed and what is actually working right now. This is not like something that was created 5 years ago that's rinse and repeat. We have created this off the back of what's happening right now. So this is kind of this is it. It's a course to take you from where you are to wherever you want to be, and chart it out in a way. Oh, we got the golden ticket. And chart it out in a way that is systematized, and it's a process that you can follow step by step. And then you're going to come up against something, and then you'll have an answer for that something. So how do we get access to online and off-market deals? Great. We have the Deal Finder framework, and these are all the things that you do. You then need to run a stage 1 due diligence. Did you pass that due diligence? Nope, I failed. Great. Restart all over again. Did you inspect the property? There's 2 schools of thoughts on property inspections. You can close the deal quick and get it done. We'll then talk through each state so you understand the rules and regulations for those states. So you could pull out of a deal if you wanted to. Stage 2 due diligence, did it pass that? And then that way you can assess a deal in 30, 40 seconds and move on if it's the incorrect one. Making offers. How do you actually get an offer that actually works? Signing a contract. You guys get access to all of this stuff in the course. You get the deal crunch calculator, the off-market deal finding script, how to speak to agents on their level, agent call masterclass to break in actual, negotiating tactics. Like literally I had 22 pages of agent negotiations, and now I've had to break it down into 3 different sections. How to run pest and buildings, how to actually negotiate and get the money off, real world case studies to show you that this stuff is actually working out there in the real world. Like this dude right here, $760,000 worth of equity in 2.5 years. So that is
that photo,
pretty.
by the way, Joe.
This one, you like that one?
you don't look impressed by that one. But no, it's interesting. Somebody said. Somebody said, "Do I still?" Abby said, Would I still need to pay $15K to the BA after this course?" I think to me,
that's a very good question. Actually, that's a very good question. Well, how would you answer it? Yeah.
Well, I mean, to me, I'm actually like this is not going to, and this group is not going to change all that much. It's purely not. It's going to be about people helping people, and maybe sometimes that might be us helping those people. But for me, the way I see it is, I actually am not too concerned where or who you take action with. It's just about that you actually take that action. If you decide that you want to run down the path and have that community, because we're going to be creating the big sort of, we're going to create the community. I'm going to be helping, I mean, for the time being, at least for as long as I can keep doing it. That's what I want to do. And I'll keep doing that in Oz Property. So, but for me, it's about, okay, if you have the time and I'm super passionate about searching for deals. So I've used buyer's agents, and I've signed up to maybe not hundreds of courses, but a lot of courses. So I love both approaches. So to me, there's opportunity. And if you want to actually, you can absolutely knock it out of the park yourself as well. You just have to dedicate the time and do that yourself. Whereas the course is just the accelerator. There's no silver bullet in this thing. This will absolutely help you smash it. But if you're dedicated, you can do it yourself. I don't want to sort of, there's no sugarcoating that, but this will level up, which is the name of the course.
Yeah. I think that one of the things is I have a very skeptical mind. I don't trust a lot of things. So when I see buyer's agents creating a course, I'm like, oh, cool. Okay, that's just a lead magnet for your business. That's not what this is. I'm giving you absolutely everything, so you can go out there and create a business that does millions of deals a year. So what my point is this is Oz Property Investment Community. It's got no connection to property principles in my business whatsoever. So the question is, do you get a discount on my Oz? If you're a member of this course, do you get a discount of the property principal service? No. Do you get any special treatment if you've done this course? No. Do you do this course and whatever? There is no connection to my business and this. You guys are going to get taught absolutely everything so that you can go out here and do this, and that you don't need to spend 15, 20 grand on a buyer's agent every time that you need to do it. For me, I understand that. Oh, well, the thing is, buyer's agents are just a tool. So if you want to get educated and learn how the process is, like if you've only got an hour a week to invest in property, like half an hour a week, you might be better served to use a buyer's agent, right? Because you haven't got the time to do the things that you need to be doing. But if you've got a couple of extra hours, if you've got 3-4 hours a week that you can squeeze in, you can absolutely go out there and do it. But no, there's no benefit of using this and getting anything to do with my business in any way. We've created this community because we like to educate people. We keep talking about these frameworks and we keep sporadically putting this information out there. This time we're compressing it down into a succinct thing. One thing to mention,
I think it's longer than what we thought it would be, Joe. You were like, is this going to be longer than 10 hours? I think it could be 20 to 30 plus hours, which
we'll add up the calculation. The other thing to mention is last year, the capital growth for Australia was 6% capital growth. In our business, we did 21%. That is a 16% difference because we utilized these tools, tricks, and tactics. There's literally nothing that I'm hiding from here. So please.
I was never really hiding anything anyway. So somebody said, how do you have testimonial reviews on the website if it's new and not released yet? So this community has been operational for 5 years. We've got 80,000 people. And just the other day, I saw you did that post, Joe. You had like 40 people comment how we've been able to, whether it's us or whether it's somebody in the group contribute, you've bought over 200 plus properties for people. So this is the very similar process that you're not hiding anything. So this is the process you can use to replicate that. Yes, Joe absolutely is the 1% kind of person. But does that answer that question, Joe? Does that answer?
Well, I think that you've kind of miss a bit of a point there. Like I'm not buying a lot of the properties in my business anymore because I've taught and trained and educated buyer's agents in my business to do exactly this. So the results that we're getting is because I taught and trained the right people to be able to do it. And that's the goal of this is great. I'll teach and train you what I teach and train them so that, and Jef obviously is a big part of the education on that. But yeah, that's how we would do it. The other thing is the results are based on what we've gotten. So right now, so they're all real. You can go check them out on the Google and go through all of that. For this, so this is a brand new launch for us, right? There is all of the frameworks built in, all of the videos built in, but we are only opening this up for 20 people right now because we don't want to open up the floodgates and let 78,000 people in and there's some, video error or the script or something like that. So we are letting in 20 people for the first thing. If you want to do that, jump on the website, press any one of these buttons. I'm pretty sure they all go to the same thing. We want to make sure that you're the right person for this as well. You need to be someone that is willing and able to actually purchase property in the next 90 days, someone who's actually got some time to invest in this. One thing to mention, this is not a get rich quick scheme. This is a get rich slow scheme. So don't go in here thinking, oh my gosh, you're going to be, solving all of my life's problems. No, money doesn't solve all your problems, but it does solve your financial problems. If you have severe kind of constraints financially, this isn't for you either. If you've got like a high personal debt, sort that stuff out. Like, this is a paid course. This is not free. So just be aware of that. There is a cost. This is a comparable cost to what you would expect from all other courses out there in the market. And also, actually, one thing that I didn't mention is you do get a 6-month free subscription with everyone that does it gets a 6-month subscription to HTag. So you get $1,100 worth of free value by signing up to this course, and you get instant access to that as soon as you sign up. So the first step is booking an onboarding call so we can find out if you're actually a fit for it, and then rocking and rolling from there.
Yeah, I mean, to me as well, this is only there's everything you need in here. We're going to be adding resources, extra sort of lessons that if you find if there's something like this is everything you need to know. If there's extra sort of simple things you want in there, because the problem is Joe and I have been investing for 10 or 15 years. So if you're about to buy your first property, there may be something that Joe and I are just like, oh, this is just, we have that knowledge. So if you need something put into the course, enough people need that feature or thing, we will add that. So that's something that this is not just something we're going to sit in the corner and let dust off for a couple of years. We're going to be making upgrades and doing all that sort of stuff. And Joe, so what do people get for signing up to the course? And what is a bonus as well for the first? I want the level up shirt too, but anyway.
Oh, you don't get a level up shirt. We've only got 4. So it's only 4 created. But to reward anyone that signs up, the first 20 people, they get a golden ticket. And this isn't a Wonka golden ticket. It is an OzProp golden ticket where Jef, you will go out there and we'll teach you how to do all the tools, tricks, and tactics to go out there and find an investment grade property, an investment grade location that suits your brief. And then we will go through that deal for you. You get 1 golden ticket and I will assess it. Jef will assess it and we will go through that fundamentally and give you our thoughts, views, and opinions on that deal. And if it stacks up as a yay, or if it would be something that we would say, hey, you know what, I'll probably pass on that. So you are getting access to the golden tickets.
Yeah. And what else the other thing that people get is they get, Joe and I were talking about this before, and we're almost not going to do it, but you get, there is going to be a private Facebook community. So I've said this now, and you get lifetime access to that as well. So this is essentially mentoring from Jef and Joe. And look, we are going to have other people that will join at some stage, but that's going to be us. And you also get 30 minutes with both of our accountants, a $20 million property portfolio Jeremy has built. So he'll be doing that as well. And we'll be making sure, I mean, I've known Jeremy for over 10 years. So people have asked him, does it cover development? Not at this stage. It may. Commercial, it will cover that. We'll be putting that in there. And also we'll be looking at renovation as well. Development, yes, it does form a part of the Autobarn strategy. That's something we are going to consider.
But no, we're not teaching you how to be renovated. This is not a renovation course. This is not to teach you like, oh, you go to Bunnings and you pick up this $5 thing here instead of this $25 thing here. No, this is not this. You don't want to fundamental investment grade type approach, rather than being a full development course. So when we talk about commercial, we'll be talking about commercial from the commercial context. We'll be getting commercial help from. I've never bought a commercial property, so I'm not right to be speaking to that. So if you guys want to go ahead with that, if anyone's interested in that, the openings for the callings start on Monday. So just book your call in from there. And then go through the form, and if you can, make it happen. Let's go buy a property.
So once we hit that 20, and I think we're going to close it off, and you're going to get calls every 3 weeks as well with us.
Calls
as a group.
Yeah. Okay. We're not having phone calls. But we will when we go through your deal, we'll have a phone call. We'll chat through your deal and all of that
Nice.
good stuff.
So Joe, back to this area. I want to show, because Roxford Park, we sort of stole Roxford Park's thunder. I'm sorry, but no, I just want to keep going with the value, because yes, there is that live thing, but no. So I just want to talk to that quickly and show people some of the things. So if we look at, I actually agree, that's a good point you spoke about. If you want to evaluate strategy, that's probably not your thing. And Joe's like, poor bloke's exhausted. But what we are looking at here is microburbs, and what we are seeing is as an affluent score. So if you look at this particular suburb, you're saying, and we're going back into it. So I'm sorry.
Okay, so we're going back into Roxburgh Park, and what we're trying to assess here is the demographic of the area based on not the suburb overall, but the pockets within the suburb based on what the ABS data is saying, so that we can get a higher level overview of it. So do you want to zoom in a little bit, because we can't read any of that, Jeff?
I'm going to do that. Here we go. Is that big enough?
Yeah.
Right. Don't ever give me the cool keys to the keyboard again. But no, so the thing I love about this is it's interactive. You can and you can see public housing in Roxford Park is extremely low across that suburb. So it is also significantly owner occupied. You're talking under 20% of renters across the suburb. Now I'm sure there's pockets. You can see they're 36%, but generally across the suburb it is more heavily owner occupied. The concern about parts of North Melbourne, I just want to take you, and then we'll start to wind it up. The concern about some pockets of Melbourne, because poor Joe needs to go to bed. But no, is something like Broadmeadows. You look at public housing in pockets of. So yes, you're sort of 5 to 10 minutes away. So you do need, that is something you need to factor in. So there is some public housing floating around those areas, and Dallas as well. So I don't mean to tarnish or trash people living in public housing. Everybody's got to live somewhere, and it's littered amongst all suburbs, I would say, as well. But that's just something, one of the data points. This is the kind of, that once you've had the conversation with your property managers, you're then sort of asking for those hot spots versus not spots, but also comparing that to the data as well. So you're getting the best of both worlds. So I just wanted to highlight, this is another free tool you can use, because people ask about that. So anything more to say about Roxford Park, Joe? I'll stop sharing.
Mate, I think you nailed it. I think we went through everything when it comes to the Roxburgh Park. This course is something that we've been working on, literally since 2020. And the good thing is like we've been able to. I'm glad we didn't launch it in 2020, to be honest, because we wouldn't be out. Well, we've proved the results now by the output that we have. I'm just trying to find the screenshot so I could show you where, like, oh my gosh, this was actually been. I sent it to Jeff and he's like, "What? It's been this long? Shit, we should have launched this sooner." There you go.
Yeah, I think normally we take questions. We've taken questions throughout. I just wanted to reassure everybody this is very unlikely to turn into a pitch a minute kind of thing. This is, yes, there is going to be an option to purchase the course. So I wanted to reassure people, Oz Property Investors is still going to be great. It's going to maybe even greater. I might even be posting a little bit more as well, valuable topics rather than those. What color do you think is the best? Is the sky best as? I don't post those things for the record. But Joe, okay, this has been an epic session. I don't think we need to. I think we should just leave it at that. But no, I've enjoyed giving people the 80-20 of building that 150K passive income portfolio. Now there's an option for you to come along and do the things that we've done. You've helped lots of people do, and do it yourself. Come along with us, because I think there's opportunity in the next 5 or 10 years. Beyond that, I don't do this for scarcity kind of thing, but I think it's starting to get somewhat unaffordable to buy investment properties in Australia. So that's kind of my concern. But Joe,
there's a question that popped up where your guys are giving examples of clients who've added a bedroom and subdivided. There's literally a person that we give you the address of that did it last year. You did it. Yeah, I think I mentioned it here. Phil did a 3 to 4 bedroom conversion. I think I mentioned it here. 3 to 4 bedroom conversion, made 110,000, I think, in equity. took a 3 to 4 bedroom conversion with an impressive result. He purchased, here's the address with the street name blocked out, for $595,000 in less than 12 months. He was revalued at $730,000, which is $135,000 worth of equity. And then Nathan, who made $170,000 by renovating this address for why am I not sharing my screen? For $40,000. And then, so there's a whole heap of details in there. So this is real. Like, it's literally the results. Hey, let us know. Let us know your thoughts. If you want to subscribe, you can do it. If you don't. Doesn't change.
No. So, Joe, we usually ask you at the end of the show, how can people find out more about, I don't know if you, do you want to,
I think
how do people find out, get more?
I think we've done that. I think we've done, how do you get more of this in your life? If you want more of us in your life and you want a concise, step-by-step, scalable process, it's all there. Go sign up to that sucker, and you'll be a part of that community. You'll get your golden ticket, and we'll build a sensational portfolio together and make it happen.
I just wanted to answer this one because it's a critical part. We talk about community. Do you have access? Do you give access to a better broker? And yes, he may already be on a several
brokers.
So brokers. Yes, we use multiple. We use brokers ourselves. We use accountants. We use all of those things, and we'll give you. This will actually be a core part. We talk about team. I talk about team probably every 2 sentences sometimes. But so for me, yes, absolutely. And how to find those people if we don't have a person in that location, for example, property managers, because we've had to source these for our own investment properties, for other people's investment properties. So, Steve said, "Are the books free? Are your books free? Limited? No, this book isn't free, Steve. But no, I think that's it."
That is it. Jeff, drop the. Can I do it? Can I just hit post? Oh, look at that! There it is. There's the link in the comments there. So if you want to check it out, go jump on there, watch the video. That was made ages. That took very long to make. So thanks, Thea, for that one, and thanks, team, for making it happen.
Thanks very much. Oh well, let's go and buy.
Let's go make it happen, guys. Let's go buy a property. See you later. Have a good one. Good luck. Let's go buy.